Ушла быстрее! Быстрее! Все сюда! Все сюда! О! Туда, Юра! Юра, туда!
In January 2022, 40-year-old lawyer Anna Yuskova jumped into a river in Russia. On that day, she and her family were celebrating the Christian Orthodox Epiphany, which is a celebration where followers jump into blessed water to commemorate Jesus' baptism in the River Jordan. Now, on that day, it was -5 degrees Celsius, which is incredibly cold. But that didn't stop Anna from jumping into the river. Sadly, though, as you saw in that footage, once she jumped into this icy river, her body was quickly swept away by currents, and she was trapped under that extremely thick, extremely cold sheet of ice. It was pitch black under there, and she had no idea where she was, and I couldn't find any reports about her body ever being recovered, so I don't really know what happened to her. It is tragic, though, in that footage, as you can see her husband jump into the river to try to find her, but it was too late, and Anna was already gone. If you want to hear more true crime stories, listen to the podcast Murder in America that I co-host with my wife Courtney. It's available on all streaming platforms.
On November 24th, 2009, John Jones, a 26-year-old medical student and father of one, entered the Nutty Putty Cave with family, excited to explore its depths. Little did they know this adventure would take a tragic turn. As they ventured further, John attempted to navigate a tight L-shaped passage known as Bob's Push. He believed it led to a larger opening, but instead he found himself in an even tighter squeeze. John then became trapped upside down in a passage barely 10 inches wide and 18 inches high, a horrifying position that restricted his breathing. John's family grew frantic. They called for help and rescue teams arrived quickly, and a complex rescue mission began. For 27 hours, rescuers worked around the clock, carefully chipping away at rock and attempting to free John from the impossible position. And at one point, rescue workers set up a sophisticated rope and pulley system in an attempt to extract him. But the system failed when put under strain, plunging John Jones back into the hole. But despite their best efforts, John's inverted position was putting immense strain on his body, restricting blood flow and making it harder to breathe by the minute. As the hours passed, John's body weakened. His heart couldn't bear the strain any longer. And tragically, after 27 hours, he passed away inside the Nutty Putty Cave. John's body could not be safely recovered, and in his memory, the Nutty Putty Cave was permanently sealed.
This man pictured right here sacrificed his parents to Satan and carved an upside-down cross onto his body. Let's talk about Jeffrey Franklin and his disturbing case. Leading up to the murders, he actually detailed what he was going to do in drawings, and it looked very violent and disturbing. He also wrote a note hailing Satan and that he would sacrifice his mother and sister to his Lord. A neighbor saw Jeffrey leaving the home covered in blood and was quick to call the police. The police were chasing him, and he ended up back in a yard close to his family's home. When they arrested him, they said it looked like he hadn't been sleeping for several days. He was shirtless, they saw the upside-down cross carved into his torso, and he had this crazy look on his face, pictured right here. In this picture, he was also in the back of the police cruiser. This is right after they apprehended him. These occult crimes always give me chills because these people are so unhinged and crazy. Going more into the details of his crime, he used a hatchet and a sledgehammer. He murdered both of his parents and critically injured 3 of his siblings. He is currently serving 5 life sentences for his crime, and he blames his crimes on heavy metal music. There is no scientific evidence to back that heavy metal music causes behavior. He's just using that as a scapegoat. Let me know what you guys think about Jeffrey Franklin's case in the comment section below. 10 years ago, the woman behind me wanted to impress a fictional character named Slender Man. He's a horror character or a creepypasta that was made up. She was just granted a conditional release from the mental facility that she's in right now. For those that don't know who Slender Man is, this is Slender Man. He is a creepypasta. He's a horror character. He stands at like 10 feet tall and abducts children. 10 years ago in 2014, Morgan Geyser behind me stabbed one of her classmates to impress Slender Man. Let me be clear, Miss Geyser lured that girl into the woods, they were both classmates, and then stabbed her 19 times. They were both sentenced to 30 to 40 years in a psychiatric institution. I believe Geyser actually got 40, but her friend got like 25 or 30. They found her not guilty by reason of insanity. She was found guilty of the attempted first-degree murder, but that was soon reversed because of the insanity. Since that incident 10 years ago, they say Miss Geyser is doing very, very well in prison, being part of a good community, acting well and behaved. It is still not clear why exactly she did that, just to impress Slender Man. There's no reason behind it. They have no idea if he like said something to her in her delusions or hallucinations. They don't really know what exactly motivated her to do it, but she has unanimous support according to the psychologist that's seeing her for her release. I want to know what you guys think about this. Should they keep her in there or should they release her?
My Roman Empire is the JonBenet Ramsey case, and the theory that I have about what happened to her that I don't see anyone else talking about. This video is for people that are already pretty familiar with the JonBenet Ramsey case. If you want me to go into more in depth in another video, let me know. Just to cover the basis, JonBenet Ramsey was a little girl who was unalived on Christmas night in 1996. Her family are all big key players. You have her father, John, her mother, Patsy, and her older brother, Burke Ramsey. The last time that JonBenet was seen awake was at a Christmas party that was hosted by like a friend of the family. To this day, the full guest list of this party has never been reportedly given to police, which is sus. Ramsey family lived in Boulder, Colorado, and at the time of this unaliving, it is heavily reported that in Boulder, Colorado, there were a lot of child SA rings. JonBenet's father, John, also had a lot of alleged allegations against him, like SA allegations. My theory is that the guests at this party were involved in a child SA ring, and that what initially caused JonBenet harm either happened at this house or another location, not at the Ramsey home. JonBenet was hit in the head, like pretty hard. The Ramsey home is very heavily carpeted and there's no large amounts of blood anywhere. JonBenet was found in the basement of her home, and the fact that there was no blood really found in the home has never been questioned. JonBenet's older brother has been in a lot of scrutiny in media and in conspiracy theories because people think that he is involved. Was Burke violent at times? Yes. Was he a little odd at times? Yes. Did Burke appear like super sketchy when he was on Dr. Phil? Yes. I think I clearly see Burke differently from a lot of people. Yes, all these things are true, but because he was a victim of these child SA rings, as well as JonBenet and probably countless other children. Everybody assumes that the family either had to be involved or it had to have been an intruder that caused this unaliving, but I don't think people are looking at the bigger picture. The more you learn about this case, the less it really does make sense, and I think there's a reason for that. I really do think the father, John, was involved in a child SA ring, traded his child to someone else, something accidentally happened, and the person got scared and just dropped her back off at home. There's really so much more I could say about this case. There's like so many odd details that just like don't make sense with other details in the case. So if anyone's interested in talking about it, let me know because I'll definitely make more videos.
This plane disappeared and landed 37 years later. What was found inside shocked the entire world. The plane took off from Miami in 1950 with 60 passengers on board. It was supposed to fly to Los Angeles. For everyone on board, it seemed like a normal flight, until something happened that changed their lives forever. Suddenly, the plane disappeared from radar, and no one in the control room could contact the pilot. It was as if the plane had never existed. Aviation authorities were immediately sent to search for the plane over the ocean, but they couldn't find it. After months of searching, the plane was still missing. To them, it was clear that the aircraft had suffered a technical failure and crashed into the ocean without leaving a trace. The airline compensated the families for all the lives lost, and the case was considered closed. But on May 21, 1987, 37 years later, air traffic controllers in Venezuela spotted something strange in the sky. It was the plane that had disappeared years ago. When it landed, what the authorities found inside shocked the entire world. To find out what they discovered, click the More button and comment "plane" for part 2.
This is one of the most disturbing experiments in history. The experiment was done in the 1960s. It was performed on dogs, and it was unethical and cruel. It also gave us a lot of insights into a dark aspect of human psychology and a sociological phenomenon to control and manipulate called learned helplessness. So let's talk about it. Reminder, I tell a lot of dark stories on this channel, and this one. So follow along if you'd like to hear more. I couldn't find a red marker. So here's how the experiment worked. Dogs were placed in a cage with 2 compartments divided by a low wall. One side of the wall was electrified and the other wasn't. In phase 1, some of the dogs were restrained and exposed to mild electrical shock so they could not escape. And no matter what they did, barking, pulling, struggling, they couldn't stop the shocks. Which was teaching them that no matter what they did and how much they struggled, there was nothing they could do to stop their torment. Then came phase 2 of the experiment. The dogs were then placed in the cage where they were able to escape from the electrical shock. All they had to do was jump over the little wall. But the shocking and heartbreaking part of this experiment was this. The dogs didn't even try to escape the shocks. They just laid there crying, acting like escape wasn't even an option. Learned helplessness shows us the power of the mind to adapt to trauma, even in ways that hurt us. And it's not about weakness, it's survival. And like I said before, it's a tactic that's often used by people in order to make people feel powerless and control and manipulate. If we were to apply the idea of learned helplessness to the present day, in moments when we feel powerless, it's easy to feel like we as individuals can't do anything to change the outcome. Just like these dogs who were taught that escape was impossible. But here's the thing. Learned helplessness can be unlearned, and we are not powerless. The dogs in the experiment were alone, but we're not. I know it's easy to feel like the world is out of control, but despair is the real enemy here. Remember that history shows us that change can happen if we refuse to give in to despair. We need to be the authors of our own stories, and no one and no system should be able to change that.
Now this is truly disturbing footage. Watch as Bianca Ellis, a killer, stalks a mother and her young child as they walk out of a grocery store. Notice how Bianca is carrying a knife with her. You won't even believe what happens next. The woman in that video was 32-year-old Bianca Devins. And after she walked off camera in that video, she stabbed the 3-year-old child to death and also stabbed the child's mother, Margot. The victim, 3-year-old Julian Wood, was a normal boy. And according to everyone reporting on this case, he and his mother had no connection to Bianca whatsoever. This was a completely random act of violence. Bianca can be seen in that extended security camera footage brandishing a knife while walking around the store, scoping out potential victims. And then, like I showed you at the beginning, towards the end, she identifies the mother and her son for some reason and follows them out to the parking lot where she stabbed them. Disturbingly, in a recent court appearance, Bianca can actually be seen smiling, laughing, and giggling as charges of murder are read against her. And like I said before, it's unknown why she carried out this attack, and prosecutors right now are saying this was a completely random act of violence. I'm going to keep you guys updated on the story here, but if you want to hear more true crime stories, listen to the podcast that I co-host with my wife Courtney, Murder in America. It's available on all streaming platforms.
This teacher essayed multiple of her students until she got pregnant. For a while, Rebecca Joins from the UK was living like her best life. She graduated university, got this really nice apartment with a long-term boyfriend. The two had actually been together since she was 15, and for a while, they had the perfect relationship. Rebecca had also recently gotten her dream job as a high school math teacher, so things were looking really good. But after 9 years of dating her long-term boyfriend, Rebecca became really controlling, possessive, and jealous. She was always accusing her boyfriend of cheating, and after a while, he broke up with her and moved out, which was really devastating for Rebecca. And pretty much right when that happened, the 2020 lockdown started, so classes were moved online and Rebecca was completely alone. But in September of 2021, Rebecca was 27 years old and that school year started with classes back in school. Rebecca was teaching math to 14 and 15-year-olds, and she's a younger teacher, and I guess some people would find her attractive, and she started getting a lot of attention from her students, these teenage boys. These 14 and 15-year-old boys were constantly flirting with Rebecca, and she was lonely and single, so the 27-year-old Rebecca really liked the attention. But instead of being the responsible teacher, like the adult in this situation, Rebecca really entertained this inappropriate behavior. And there was this one 15-year-old boy in particular that was especially flirty towards Rebecca, and all the victims in this case identities have been protected, so we're just going to refer to him as Boy A. And after only being his teacher for 5 weeks, Rebecca gave Boy A her phone number. That was on October 11th, which was a Monday. The two were constantly flirting through texts. It was really suggestive. And by that Friday, so only 5 days later, 27-year-old Rebecca and 15-year-old Boy A went on their first date. Boy A told his mom that he was going to be spending the night at his friend's house, and him and Rebecca went to the mall for their first date. At the mall, Rebecca bought Boy A 345-pound Gucci belt, which is like $440 in the United States, and buying victims really expensive gifts is a tactic that predators often use. After the mall, Rebecca and Boy A went back to Rebecca's apartment, and on the way, the two of them actually joked about how Boy A wasn't even old enough to drive yet. Like, yuck. Back at the apartment, Rebecca statutory SA'd Boy A multiple times. She actually lied to him and said that she was infertile and couldn't get pregnant, so the two of them didn't use protection. And this is just so wrong and illegal on so many levels. The age of consent is 18. Rebecca is Boy A's teacher. She's only known him for a couple of weeks, and this was Boy A's first time ever. And like teenage boys do over that weekend, Boy A told all of his friends about what he did with Miss Joins. So by Monday, rumors had spread across the entire school, which of course were not rumors, and very quickly, CPS, the police, and the school were all notified. Boy A confessed to everything, and he said it honestly made him really, really uncomfortable, but he was trying to act like he was cool and mature, but he's only 15. Rebecca was arrested. She was suspended as her position as a teacher. She was let out on bail pending an investigation and a trial with the condition that she was not allowed to have any contact with anyone under the age of 18. Unfortunately, Boy A is not the only victim in this case. So now we have to talk about Boy B. Boy B was another 15-year-old boy in Rebecca's math class, and before being arrested, Rebecca added Boy B on Snap. And while she was out on bail for the same crime, Rebecca was sending flirty and suggestive messages to Boy B as well as inappropriate photos. And by the beginning of November, Rebecca invited Boy B over to her apartment for the first time. This is her second victim in less than 1 month, and she's already gotten caught once. First time that Boy B came over, Rebecca did assault him, but they didn't go all the way because Rebecca wanted to wait until Boy B turned 16, which was only a couple weeks away, but like that would make it any better. And as soon as he turned 16, Rebecca statutory essayed Boy B, and this was also his first time ever. And the two would then be in a relationship for over a year. Just like with her ex-boyfriend, Rebecca became super obsessive and controlling and possessive and jealous over Boy B. She wanted all of his passwords. She would always go through his phone. She would make Boy B FaceTime her to prove that he wasn't with other girls. She also wanted Boy B's location. And if he wouldn't text her back fast enough, Rebecca would just show up to wherever he was. So now she's stalking this teenage boy. And when Boy B tried to break up with Rebecca, she threatened to unalive herself, which is like another tactic that abusers and manipulators use. But Rebecca is 28 years old now. She's almost 30, and this is what she's doing to a teenager. And then in March of 2023, Rebecca had been abusing Boy B for 18 months. She told him to come over to her apartment because she had a surprise for him. When he came over, she had a scavenger hunt set up for him all throughout her apartment, which ended with Boy B finding a baby onesie that said, "I love you, daddy" on it. And this is so confusing because did she forget that he's a teenage boy? Like, this is something you would do if you and your husband had been trying for a baby for a while. And also, Rebecca had also told Boy B that she was infertile and couldn't get pregnant, which obviously wasn't true, but then they never used any protection. It's like this was something she planned so she could trap this teenage boy. But luckily, I think this was enough for Boy B to realize that he was so over his head that he went home and he told his parents everything, which I'm sure was really, really difficult for him to do. I mean, he's a teenage boy. He has to say that he's been sleeping with his adult teacher and now he's gotten her pregnant. So I really, really applaud his bravery for feeling like he can go to his parents. But Rebecca was arrested again. And in January of 2024, she gave birth in prison to Boy B's baby, and Boy B and his family have full custody of that baby. Rebecca's trial began in May of 2024, and she really tried to act like she was the victim. Every single day into court, she would bring this like little baby hat. You can see in this photo, she has it tucked into her pants for some reason. And sadly, some people don't see men as victims, especially of SA, even if they're teenagers. So the prosecution asked the jury to imagine how they would feel if this was a male adult teacher on trial and he had essayed two 15-year-old girls and had gotten one of them pregnant, because there is no difference. Rebecca was found guilty on all charges, but sadly, she was only sentenced to 6.5 years in prison, meaning she'll get out of prison by the time she's in her mid-30s. And I truly think that Rebecca is a dangerous predator and will likely reoffend. And also, when Rebecca is released from prison, she will get visitation of Boy B's baby, which I don't agree with at all. I definitely think if she was a man and the roles were reversed, that would not be the case. But luckily, when Rebecca is released from prison, she will be on the registered SA offender list for the rest of her life. And if you watched to the end of this video, thank you so much. It would mean so much to me if you share this video. I don't want Rebecca to get out of prison thinking that she can just live her life as normal. I want as many people as possible to know this monster's face.